Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we've got a 10-game slate on a Wednesday night here in the NBA. Plenty to choose from. Not loving all of these matchups, but we do have a couple game videos up for you and our player props video as we're bringing you each and every weekday. So make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along. Also head to thelines.com. That's where we have our great written content up for you guys all season long, and our odds finder tool that you can use to make sure you're getting the best juice back across those U.S. sportsbooks as you make those NBA bets this season. Nate, let's go ahead and jump into this big slate tonight and then talk Mavs and Cavs.
Yeah, a couple leans for us, but we didn't really have the strength to pull the trigger on them. But Pistons are +3 at the Hornets. The Warriors on their back-to-back now in a pick'em at Indiana. Total of 238 there. The Hawks are -2.5 at Orlando. Kind of like the Magic there. The Kings are +5 at the Raptors. Kind of like the Raptors, but OG Anunoby's going to be out. Knicks +4 at Bulls. Jalen Brunson might not play for the first time this year. Blazers are -7.5 at the Spurs, who are suddenly trying again. The Heat without Jimmy Butler, -3 at the Thunder. Wizards +10 at Nuggets seems kind of high, but they've lost 7 straight. And the other game we are breaking down, the Wolves are +6 at the Clippers. Get to that one in a minute. Right now we're talking Cavs +2 at the Mavericks, total of 215.5. And the total is where I go here. Both of these teams have a deserved reputation for playing excellent defense. And last year, I believe they were the two most consistent teams going under in the entire NBA. So that's why you get the total of 215. But now Donovan Mitchell is on the Cavs, and he is a one-man offense. And they have several creators besides him. Interesting in their last game, obviously they have the horrible home road splits, and they came out flat once again against the Spurs. But then, decided to go a little bit more offensive-minded, playing Karis LeVert more. He had 23 in 29 minutes. Lamar Stevens, 0 points in 25 minutes. I don't know if they continue that way, because you do need kind of that defensive stopper to try and slow down Luka Doncic. But I think either way, Donovan Mitchell is going to start cooking at some point. And that, even though he has kind of bad numbers against Dallas, his last 8, including 6 in the playoffs, so only a 103 offensive rating, getting about 23 points per game. Just Dorian Finney-Smith and Reggie Bullock have not been the same kind of wing defenders that we saw last year. They have both are around a 115 defensive rating. Dallas in their last 9 has a 119 defensive rating. They've gone over in 7 of their last 9. You'd say, oh, well, some of those are on the road. 5 of them were on the road, 4 at home, in which they allowed at least 111 points per game, so still up there. And they're scoring 118 regardless of where they are. They spread people out. They hit threes. So the fact that Cleveland has elite rim protection isn't the biggest deal. Even You can't really guard the rim from Luka with all the tricks in his bag. And I look at the only 2 meetings between these teams last year. And the first one was a grinded out defensive win for the Cavs because Kristaps Porzingis was still the co-star. The Mavs had not established their pace and space offense. They had Moses Brown starting alongside KP to try to match size with the Cavs. And we've seen the playbook from Jason Kidd all the way through the playoffs last year is like, okay, actually we're going to downsize. We're going to play Maxi Kleber, who's questionable tonight, but should be good. We're going to downsize and we're going to try to spread you out, and 3's worth more than 2. So see if you can keep pace with us. And with that approach, they then beat the Cavs in Cleveland 120-112. Those are the home road splits in their favor. But I just look at what the Mavs were able to do, hit 16 threes, 28 assists, only 11 turnovers. I think they'll be able to do their part to score. And the Cavs are going to have some positive regression here. They were 5 for 27 from 3 against the Spurs. The Spurs are an awful defense, so lots of open shots there. And they're so bad on the road right now. Lost 4 in a row with just a putrid offensive rating that, there has to be a concerted effort to try to get on track one way or the other. I expect Mitchell to lead that charge, and I expect them to at least score 108 or higher. And then, we get to that 215 total pretty easily.
Yeah, the total I feel a little bit better about, but to be honest, like I also just kind of like the Mavs. I mean, the 2 point spread is pretty negligible to get you to a place to just kind of go, all right, well, the Mavs don't cover anywhere this season, by the way, pretty much the worst cover percentage of any team in all of their games overall. But their spreads at home are monstrous because dating back to last season, they're basically like a top 3, top 4 team in terms of defending home court advantage. Which it seems to be a lot more this year than in the past. Like there actually is a home court advantage this season as opposed to when we were coming back from COVID and people probably still weren't in the stands, etc. But regardless, the home court advantage that the Mavs have doesn't translate to covering; it just translates to winning. Right? They're 11-4 this season at home versus 5-9 on the road. They're not covering. Like I said, they're 4-9-2 against the spread at home, despite being 11-4 overall, because those spreads are just really high. So I don't need to worry about all that stuff. They're winning by an average of 7 points per game at home right now, regardless of favorite or not. So I just them being at -2 right now is good enough for me to feel good about them handling things. Their defense, while it hasn't been as good, you kind of pointed out smaller sample size, maybe the last like 3 or 4 games. Their defense has been a little bit worse at home than it has earlier in the season. But earlier in the season, all the way up to now, I mean, 45% opponent field goal percentage at home. That's good for top 5 in the NBA. Everywhere. 33% from 3 and 40 as opposed to giving up 51% field goal on the road, 41.5% from deep. So it's just a pretty big difference there. That's why I don't really trust the Cavs to come along tonight. Kind of to the point that you're making. The thing that they have going for them is size, but they're still not really scoring in the paint in a way that you worry about the fact that Dallas can't guard the paint really at all this season. Definitely missing some bigger guys down low, maybe even Kristaps, but it's not it right now for them with JaVale. So it's really a matter of, like you said, can they play that pace and space? And that's how I think they want to win. That's especially against the Cavs team that is the only team playing at as slow of a pace as them, basically, especially when the Mavs are at home. So they want to go fast. I think they know that the Cavs have that advantage if they slow things down. Luka is going to do Luka, to your point. I think the pace and space is more a matter of not necessarily like get the ball and go. It's a matter of, it is a matter of get the ball and go on makes and misses. But it's not a matter of just pull the first shot. It's a matter of find Luka in transition or Dinwiddie at this point, who's been playing really well in transition as well. Find them in transition, and then all other guys just go to the 3-point line and spread out. And that's the game. And if they have to run their half court offense, and that it's fine, but it's still space, right? And as much pace as Luka would like to play with, which I think will be ramped up a bit in this one. So for Dallas as well, in terms of how they're scoring, it doesn't really matter because Cleveland guards you everywhere, right? So it's just a matter of can you guard Luka, and the answer is really, really no, because they're not really looking to get too many easy layups outside of Luka getting into the lane and then doing what he does with his turnarounds and footwork, or trying to find somebody who's wide open if the defense comes to him. So their way that they score in the paint isn't like to get your wing athlete and have him just drive after he gets the ball in the wing and get to the rim. That's not how they're going to even try to do that with Mobley and Allen down there. It's really just going to be a matter of Luka doing his thing. I think Luka props are probably good. I think the Dallas team prop at 108.5, like I said, I like them at -2, so I do like them to get over that. And it's just a matter of if Cleveland's going to come along with how awful, like dead last in offensive rating over their last 4 on the road.
Yeah, but I mean, you mentioned Dallas not being able to protect the paint, and I think that's a big problem in this matchup when you have Mitchell slashing. Mobley should get more involved off the wing, and Jared Allen actually had a 28 and 14 to help us get to that total the last time they faced in that 232 total it hit. Also, the Cavs' awful 3-point defense lately. I mean, they're 7th worst on the road and 7th worst in their last 3, even giving up 39%. Dallas also struggling to guard the 3-point line lately. So I think both teams have some weaknesses they can exploit. At some point, I feel like there has to be a regression to the mean with the Cavs' offense. Like, you can't just not show up at all on the road just because of the venue. And I think they started, if you look at momentum, just like how bad they were in the second quarter in particular against the Spurs, like letting that game slip away, but then finishing kind of furiously to only lose by 1. That, by the way, was only the second time they went over in their last 13 games. So That is why we're getting such value here. Just trying to, get ahead of it in terms of like, okay, they have too much talent in the backcourt to continue to struggle to score like 96 points per game or 96 points per 100 possession on the road. And that the Mavs have just not been the same Mavs of last year, where they're playing much faster, as in they not the slowest pace in the league. In their last 9 here, they're at 97.5 in general, and actually 98.5 at home, which is a big difference from last year where they dropped like 5 possessions per game when they were home. And they're 9-5 to the over as home favorites, 9-3 on normal rest. So the Mavs, yeah, certainly, I think you agree with me that they're going to do their part. They're going to be hitting threes. And so, I mean, that does make it sound like you should bet the Mavs if you're like, they're going to score. We don't know about the Cavs. So I'm fine with either way. If you want to take Dallas -2, if you want to take the over. But I think both are good options.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas playing a little bit worse at home on defense than they were previously in the season, so like the last 4 or 5 games for them. And Cleveland also, that is a really big number in terms of their lack of 3-point wing defense over the course of their last 4 or 5 on the road, dropping down a lot further than they are overall on the season, as they're still top 5 in terms of allowing 3-pointers and 3-pointers made. So if they're not going to be able to guard that 3 the same way on the road, then yeah, Dallas is plenty fine to have that momentum to get, to cover, in my opinion, but definitely to get their 108.5, in which case I'm also okay if you wanted to take the full total at like 215 or so and a half and get over that. It's just too small. So,
and then this game, we got Wolves minus plus 6.5, maybe 7 if you can get it, at the Clippers, total hovering around 222. Bet down a little bit because the Clippers are coming off a defensive masterpiece against the Celtics. They held them to 93 points. And I just want to kind of zig away from that, because the idea that, oh man, the Clippers are back. Kawhi and PG both played. They shut down the top offense in the league, held them below 100 for the first time all season. Therefore, they're just going to continue to play these like low scoring dominant games. And we expect the Clippers cover in and under. I don't think so. I mean, I think one or two of those guys might sit, or they might just have their minutes managed a lot, because this is the front end of a back-to-back with Phoenix coming to town tomorrow. And Phoenix, while struggling, is definitely a team that the Clippers would like to stick it to. Everybody would like to stick it to Chris Paul, the most obnoxious player in the NBA. So I do look at this as sort of a trap game, or just something that the Clippers aren't going to take that seriously. And we know they don't take the regular season seriously on a consistent basis. And that's why they're below 500 as home favorites against the spread since last year. They actually have a terrible record against the spread with a rest advantage since last year. Sort of in this spot, there was a consistent trend where they would fail to cover on the front end of a back-to-back and then come back on 0 days rest and win all of a sudden. I'm a little hesitant to back the Wolves, of course, especially if D'Angelo Russell isn't able to go. I mean, he hasn't missed a game yet, but he's questionable with knee soreness. The thing is, if he is active, he's been playing really well on offense and been a bit of a turnstile on defense. Minus 13 in that second one against Portland. Portland had 133 points, I believe. Dame had 37 with Russell trying to guard him. So you asked me where are the Clippers going to score if Kawhi or PG are limited. Anybody can score on D'Lo right now, I guess. And in general, the Wolves, interestingly, are limiting what you'd think the Clippers would like to do in terms of mid-range. They're 6th in 2-point percentage allowed. They allow the 6th fewest paint points as well. And they're vulnerable in terms of free throws, but Clippers not really getting to the line in general. So I do kind of lean towards the over here again. I kind of look at a teaser as a bit of a safer play here to get the Wolves all the way at plus 10 and the total at 218. I mean, this is a Minnesota team that does tend, when it rains, it pours on them. So maybe you don't need that teaser because they tend to play games that go really high over the total as you look at their 4-2 record to the over as road dogs this year. And those games have gone over by 13 points per game. Now, the Clippers are a tough defense to beat. But Anthony Edwards is starting to cook here. He's actually shooting 10 percentage points higher on the road versus at home. He had a huge game combining with D'Lo for 60 points when they beat the Clippers in the play-in last year. And that one still got to 213. Of course, it's a one and done atmosphere. And they're missing Karl Anthony Towns, but he's really sucked against the Clippers. Like Ty Lue definitely knows how to play against him. And he also knows how to exploit what Rudy Gobert does, not necessarily him, but the fact that he doesn't have good perimeter defenders around him. Ty Lue knows how to execute a scheme to get good shots. So I think both offenses will be pretty good here. And I would expect the Clips to lapse a little bit on their defense.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I hate predicting if Kawhi or PG are going to play, and so therefore I hate predicting Clippers games. But I think there might be a little bit of a momentum in terms of Kawhi playing. PG plays when he can. Kawhi, I have no idea. So if Kawhi is playing, I feel a little bit better about really points. I know we talked about, them, obviously Kawhi and PG being the defenders that they are. And we talked about that before they took on Boston, that's the best team in the NBA suited to guard Boston if anybody's able to do it. And they finally kept that team to under 100 points. If they're playing again, in this one, I still like offense. I don't think that they're going to have the same level of like Kawhi and PG aren't going to be like, let me go ahead and turn on my defensive motor, so that I can make sure, that I'm hanging with backup point guards on Minnesota, or obviously Ant can do his thing, but even Ant's been somewhat struggling, I guess, getting a little bit better since Cat has been out, and that's where you would look for some points as well. Obviously, he's had some struggles the other night as they were just basically struggling against the Blazers in those two games in a row that they lost. But yeah, when they are away dogs right now, I think it's pretty interesting that the total is going over by an average of about 13 points or so, even though they've covered 4 out of 6, or they've gone over in 4 out of 6 as away dogs this season. And like I said, that margin of over the total there is about 13 a game. There's just no defense for them, especially on the road, as we've been talking about. I mean, it's been a little bit better as of late. The thing that scares me about the over is just the change in pace for them. But yeah, that's not really an issue in terms of the way that they've been scoring on the road. They've been getting, about 115 to 118 or so in their last roughly 6 road games, including obviously some huge totals against teams like the Wizards, those 2 Blazers games as well. So I think you look at the totals that they're getting here in Minnesota, and obviously most of them are at least 230. I think the lowest total they've had is since the end of November, the last week in November is 225. So everything is high for them for a reason, and it's just that lack of defense. It's been a little bit better, but to your point, when you look at the way that Ty Lue has played against the Jazz as well, if you want to see how he's played, coached rather, against the Jazz and coached against Rudy Gobert, his teams are still scoring a decent amount of points. I mean, it looks like they're averaging about 113, 114 against a Jazz team that was playing a lot better at defense last year with Rudy, and it's not the same even with Rudy this season in terms of the way that they're scheming that defense. In about 5 or 6 games ago, actually right when Cat went out, was when Chris Finch the head coach, started talking about how it was time to stop making it about Rudy Gobert on defense and start having Rudy play within the team system more than the team adhere to how Rudy plays. It's worked a little bit. If you look at since Cat has been out, there's still just too many games that they've given up about 125 or more in that time frame as well. So I think there's plenty of reason with Kawhi and PG playing to like the offense a bit more as well. I know we talk about them being good at defense, but like I said, I don't think that this is a game that they're bringing it on defense, especially ahead of playing the Suns. You might even see Kawhi or PG not play too much later in the game if they're not too concerned about it, as was the case when they lost to Orlando in OT, and Kawhi still played 30 minutes out of a possible 45, right? So you're still going to keep guys off the floor like Kawhi and PG when you are trying to face the Suns next game, who are ripe for the taking right now after another loss to the Rockets the other night. So I think that they've got a pretty big target on their back, to your point, just as much as the Warriors. At least the Warriors have won something with that chip on their shoulder. I'm not really sure why the Suns have such a big chip after losing 1 finals, but that's what I would be saying the Clips are geared up for based on how they've played Kawhi this season. Like I said, he came in for that game against Orlando and played a few more minutes than I think they wanted to, because I think they would have rather have him there for the Heat in that next game. They just went to OT, played him a few a couple minutes too many. And I think in this point, they're ready to sort of keep them on the bench if they need to, and continue to, gear up for that Suns game.
Yeah, down the stretch is where Minnesota's been scoring pretty well too. I mean, when they're in the game, they have those guys that can create. And interestingly, they're a little bit more efficient. I mentioned Ant has a better offensive rating. The entire team has a much better offensive rating of 115 on the road this year, which is a big difference from home. Slower pace, but the efficiency has kept them up and hit some of those overs, as you say. And I mean, that's key for the Clippers here, who are struggling in terms of 3-point defense last three, despite getting those guys back up to 35%. And they're up to third in their 3-point shooting, though. So, I mean, I said that Minnesota doesn't give up what the Clippers like to do. Well, they're suddenly turning into more of a 3-point shooting team, and they're 9th in offensive efficiency the last three, and that has a lot to do with getting their guys back, who may or may not play here. But either way, the offense is starting to come around a little bit after being dead last in everything. And they're dead last in paint points, but I don't think you're going to be challenging Rudy Gobert in the paint that much. You're going to be moving it around to get the shots you want. So, yeah, I think I feel pretty good about plus 10 with the total a little lower.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, a little bit of a teaser in this one, just because this total it seems somewhat properly set, but I think 225 I feel good about, so I like the over anyway. But if you want to get a few more points for Minnesota to be able to cover as well, I understand that. I'm scared of this Minnesota team. I don't know what I'm getting. I'm scared of the Clippers not playing anybody and how they're going to do their rotations. But I think over 223 is at least fair. I'm probably going to stay away from trying to guess Minnesota to cover with or without D'Lo in this one. But so Nate, let's go ahead and jump into your first NBA play a prop for tonight.
Yeah, I mean, they're calling this the dog days of the season already. And so that's why we kind of been leaning on young guys. And Jalen Green came through yesterday in a big way with the Rockets continuing their hot streak. I'm going with the young boy, Paolo Banchero, though, the potential rookie of the year, against a Hawks team that really is starting to hate each other and just fall apart with chemistry issues all over the place. On the season, they give up the fourth most points and rebounds to power forwards. And John Collins has been out for weeks now. Now, DeJounte Murray's been out for the last 4. They have a 117 defensive rating. They're allowing 121 a game. And their offense has also struggled, so they're giving up 49 rebounds per game. So the fact that Paolo went for 2 points and just 2 rebounds in a blowout loss to Atlanta 2 weeks ago makes me feel fine expecting positive regression on the boards. And 28.5 points rebounds on FanDuel is the best odds you can get here. You can get safer bets for him to get 21 points or 27.5 points rebounds, but I think you're fine here. In his last 4, he's averaging 21.5 and 9 boards, shooting on 42% field goal shooting, which I think is also going to go up because what he did in those last 4 came against maybe the 4 toughest matchups you can have for a lengthy wing. The Raptors twice, the Bucks, and the Clippers all at home. Yeah. And he's a young player who does, of course, perform better at home and averaging 22.7 points, 7.5 rebounds at home. Better numbers. So I feel pretty good about him eating here against the Hawks. And as I mentioned, Magic slight underdogs. Think you can sprinkle a little bit on that money line plus 120.
Yeah, the reeling Hawks, like you said, and Paolo, a guy that I think this is a much better matchup than he's been facing. To your point, the rebounds are huge too. I think obviously because the Hawks are a bottom 5 team in terms of rebounding as well. So not much coming for them there. The rebounding at 6.5 for him, I think it's fine if you combine it. It's minus 140 on DK for him to get 6.5. I think you definitely want to if he gets 7, combine that with the points and get slightly better odds to the 28.5 that you were talking about there for sure. So I know we're talking about young guys, but I'm going with a wily vet that we just keep coming back to because I feel like his prop isn't really matching what he does. Bojan Bogdanovic, I got that correctly. The one on the Pistons there, 19.5 points over that for him. I'm just taking the points for him. I mean, that's what he's doing. I think there's been a bit of a chip on his shoulder that the Pistons were able to get him so easily when I think he was like, look, there should be contenders that are vying for for me. And he's been putting up points in field goal attempts and the usage, because I think he's trying to prove that. In his last 24 points a game, just 28 minutes with a 28% usage rate. He was coming back from an injury in there, so I mean he's only failed to cover the 20-point total here in 2 of those games. And that's because he played 22 minutes or less in those games. One of them he came out after just playing 5 minutes. So really, in the games that he's getting at least 25 minutes, we're talking about 27.5 points a game in general. So that's the exact same situation against a Charlotte team that we know is bad on defense, continues to be. Last 5 versus Charlotte for Bojan, same concept. When he plays 30-plus minutes, he's averaging 27 points a game against them. So, it's also what we've been talking about all season with him. When Cade's not in there, 22 points a game with a 27.5% usage rate. And if he gets that 31.5 minutes per game that he's been getting, then, yeah, I think 20 points is a lock for him, as he's just got the ball in his hands so much, putting it up, like I said, 28% of the time when he's on the floor. So 20 points against Charlotte is just too low. They should be closer to 23.
Yeah, because it's a tanking matchup, right? So you don't expect the Pistons to necessarily get blown out, get a full slate of run. And I like what you're saying. He's trying to prove that he's worth more. He's also trying to play his way off this team, because he's been bandied about in trade talks, and there are contenders that could really use him and might make an offer before February. Follow me if you're bold on this one. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, under 39.5 points, rebounds, assists. Under 29.5 points is bad odds. So I think you add the peripheral stats, which have just not been there for him in his last 4 meetings with Miami. He's getting 8 combined rebounds and assists. In his last 5 games overall, he's getting 7.5 rebounds, assists. Obviously, he scores around 31 a game, regardless of the matchup. The Grizz did hold him in check. Miami should be able to hold him down a little bit, even though Jimmy Butler's not playing here. In a career against Miami, he's averaging only 17 points per game. In his last 4 when he was the man, still 20.3 points per game. And like I said, not a ton of peripherals. And his usage rate and his points are down a little bit at home versus an astronomical 34% usage rate on the road. So, I mean, it's plus 100 to take the under on the PRA again versus minus 125 for the points. I think you want to combine everything together here. Miami's not a team that gives up a ton of assists or loses the rebounding battle often. So I think even if he scores over 30, he might not get to that number.
Yeah, ballsy. If there's a 3 in front of that number for SGA, I'm scared of it to go under. But come on, Miami. Like, yeah, this is an opportunity for them for sure. I'm scared of them playing just the sliding that they've been doing. I mean, OKC been looking pretty good in that Dallas game. You know, SGA was definitely doing his thing, but this is a much different matchup for them, and one that I think you could probably find a bit of value in the under there. I'm definitely adding the rebounds and assists for sure. Because I'm scared to go under anything like 30 points for SGA right now, even though he's slowed down a bit for sure. As you mentioned, just that's because he came back down to earth from like 35 a game over like a 5-game span. But yeah, this is much more down to earth for him, and something I think Miami's definitely getting better on defense as Bam gets healthier, Jimmy gets healthier. So I'm going to finish things off by throwing Donnie Mitchell out there. We talked about that Cavs and Mavs game having the potential to have a bit more points than people think. Donnie, has had some struggles. I'll say too, it's 26.5 points for him on FanDuel, minus 106. You can get 25.5 too for like on DraftKings. Just obviously those odds go way down. Might as well get the extra point in there for Donnie. Some struggles versus Dallas over the course of the last 2 seasons, but Dallas has been a better team. I think we're starting to see their aging around guys like Dorian Finney-Smith, Reggie Bullock, look a lot slower on defense and not be able to lock in as much as they have been in the past. Obviously, Powell also missing some time this season, but hasn't really been getting minutes as he hasn't been a great fit so far with this version of the team. So yeah, I think this is, despite Donnie having a few struggles when he was on Utah against this team, this is a different scenario entirely, and specifically for how bad Dallas is on defense right now, allowing 117 points in their last 10, about 112 when they're at home, which is where they are tonight. So some more opportunity for him in road games so far with Cleveland. 29 a game for Donnie on 49% from the field, 38% from deep. So really good splits there. And then 92% from the line, always one of the best free throw shooters. 32% usage rate wherever he plays. So he's going to be getting the ball and putting it up as he's been doing all season. And his last four, he's been getting back on track after a small little bit of a struggle, a few bad games in a row. But his last four, 32 points per game on a 33.5% usage rate, getting those splits actually up to 52% from the field and 41 from three. So if you get into the line about 5.5, 6 times as well, I think you like those odds for him. I would also throw out there Luka. I said to Nate, like, what do you think about a Luka prop? It's like, yeah, whenever you want to take Luka. It's 30.5 points for him. If he gets 31 tonight, that's that's about even money, minus 105 on DK. I would also consider that. I know Cleveland is Cleveland, but in his last last two rather versus Cleveland, he's had 26, 10, and 10, and then like 30, 10, and 9. So there's still 33, 10, and 9. So there's still opportunity for Luka to get those. If you want to throw the PRA in there as well, it's 46.5 for him. Like I said, he's gotten that his last two against Cleveland, gets that pretty much every single night. So either of these two stars going at it tonight in this matchup, I think is a pretty good bet.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you want to take some of the bonuses available for both guys to get 30, because I think I would take an alternative over even on Mitchell here, 29, 30 points. I mean, he's just the usage and the points per game lately are so indicative of where the Cavs are at as a team, which is like, okay, we got nothing going. Let's give it to this MVP candidate that we brought on board to fix our offense. And Dallas, he knows he struggled against Dallas recently. He knows he can get it going. I expect him to get right in this matchup and for both stars to be out.
Yeah, let's get it, man. We are on track tonight, feeling good about these. So that is all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along. Come back and see us each and every weekday this season. So until we see you next, happy betting.